In our lesson today, we're going to talk about a great responsibility, and that is social media. Now, I know there's a good number of our congregation who are looking at that and thinking, what in the world is social media? They've never heard of any of these things. But then there are others of our number who are very involved, and you have accounts on Facebook and on Snapchat, and on Instagram, and upon all the many other different things which you can get involved in on social media. And many times you'll hear preachers, many times you'll hear church people who say, as Christians, you don't need to be on it. Just get rid of it, get rid of your cell phones, absolutely drop it and forget about it. That's not what you're going to hear today. I think in many ways social media is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to impact the world, for you to know more people, for you to influence more people, and for you to even enjoy your life more than you would in a regular circumstance. I was looking at one of my social media accounts today. I think it was Facebook. It said I had 4,000 friends. I just smiled. I don't even know if I know 4,000 people. And as I went through it, I'm pretty sure I don't know half of those people. But it's a way to influence a lot of people who you may not know about. As I was looking at the lesson and getting it ready through this week, I began thinking about how to organize it, how to plan it, exactly what it was that I wanted to say. And what I kept coming back to is how in so many ways a lesson on social media comes right back to the book of James and what James says about the tongue. He says the tongue is such a small, seemingly insignificant thing, but it moves the rudder of a ship. It is a small spark which starts an entire forest fire. It's something that's almost impossible to handle and to tame perfectly. But those who work it perfectly, those who work it with the influence of God, can accomplish great things. Now, if you've been on social media, let's just do the last month, okay? Let's just do the last month of social media. If you've been on Snapchat, or if you've been on Facebook, or if you've been on maybe Instagram, or whatever it is that you happen to hop on to Facebook, you've noticed the crises that have occurred, which have everybody worked up and everybody has to give their opinion on. Let's just look at the month of June, okay? In June, you have a war in Ukraine. And so everybody has to change their profile picture to the Ukrainian flag, and everybody has to talk about Ukraine quite a bit. And then you have guns, and that's a serious thing to worry about. Tragedies happen with guns, laws happen with guns, and of course, everybody's worked up about that. You have the January 6th Commission. That's something which a lot of people are concerned with, some people not so much. You have abortion and the laws concerning abortion and the reaction of people concerning abortion, what the Bible says about abortion and what people follow in that idea and that sort of thing going on. You have a lot of these different things. I counted 6 different crises. Let's see which ones I've forgotten. If I have forgotten, inflation and the price of gas. There's another one right there, isn't it? And whose fault is the price of gas? And whose fault is it that I have to spend $5 for a watermelon this 4th of July? And all these different things going on about that. Now, you bring all that together in a 30-day month, that's a crisis every 4 days. That is earth-shattering, that is explosive, that is seriously changing the course of the world and seriously breaking up relationships. And if you're on social media, you see the bombs people are passing back and forth, and you see how involved people are back and forth. Now, if you're not on social media, you still see those things. If you hear it on the news, or you hear it on TV, or read about it in the paper. But people who immerse themselves in social media, oftentimes they're angry. Because the way to increase social media work, the way to increase views, the way to increase influence is to create danger, to create controversy, to create crises. And so as you're on social media, these things are going to happen more and more and more and more. And sometimes, even though many of these things are serious, and even though many of these things are important, we can get so caught up and feel like the world is absolutely falling apart. We can get so caught up to where our minds and our hearts can't think about anything else besides exactly what's happening. And so what I want us to do today in our lesson is I want us to think about our social media accounts and think about how you use your social media account, what it's for, and think even about the influence that it has upon you. The influence that it has upon you. Now, each one of our points will start with the letter I, because you use your eye to see these things. First thing I want us to notice is this word impact. What impact do you have with your social media? When you think about what you post, or you think about your stories that you put up, or you think about your tweets that you put up, what impact are you having on the world, and what impact is the world having upon you? Once again, James chapter 3, 2 through 12. You see the impact of something which seemingly would be small, oftentimes can be so very, very great. As you look back through your stories, as you look back through your feed, as you look back through your scroll, and you read those things, what does it say about you? There's a preacher friend of mine. We're not like close friends, but we know of each other pretty well. He's one of these people that always puts every frustration upon his social media. And so one day he says, "Oh, I'm so tired of preaching." The next day, "Oh man, the people at church, they've gotten on my nerves so much." The next day, "Oh, I'm so discouraged. I just don't know what I'm going to do." The next day, "Oh, this has happened or that's happened." It's always negative. And then one day he posts and he says, "I wonder why nobody ever asked me to do a gospel meeting at their church." And you want to say, if you listen to yourself, if you listen to what you say, are you the kind of person someone wants to talk to? Are you the kind of person someone wants to be around? I remember several years ago when I was in a totally different congregation. I just started our ministry, and we had decided, hey, we're going to bring somebody else on staff. We're going to look for a youth minister. So we went to a Christian college. And as we went to that Christian college, of course, this is a long time ago, so much of social media was a little bit newer. We began interviewing these people. And as we went through all these young men that we were interviewing, on the way home, one of the elders decided to look each one of these people up on social media. Out of the 6 youth ministers who had applied, 4 of them had alcohol on their thing, where in the last month or 2 they had been drinking. That's not great for a job interview right there, is it? It doesn't work really well. But a lot of people don't realize the impact they have with what they post. Now, when you look at what you post, when you look at what you look at, when you look at the likes that you have, that you are approving of on social media, if you read through that, what kind of person are you? What kind of person does this say about you? I mean, you could be like JD and be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. Bless his heart. What does it say about you? So often we forget about the impact. Now, the Rotary has this saying, before you say anything, ask these 4 questions. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? And is it helpful? Sometimes the best thing you can do in a conversation, especially an online conversation, is to be quiet. Sometimes the best thing you can do is try to find something good or something positive, something kind, something helpful about each one of these things. Paul puts it this way in Philippians chapter 4 and verse 8. He says, "Finally, my brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are noble, if it's just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue, if there's anything praiseworthy, you meditate, you focus, you think about these things." Are you the kind of person who lifts other people up? Are you the kind of person who tries to bring a smile to people's face? Are you the kind of person who tries to help other folks? Now, as you read the passage which we based the sermon on, 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 9, it's very interesting how Paul, centuries before social media ever came out, and it's so good they didn't have social media back then, Paul would have been blocked from Twitter so long ago. What does Paul say? Paul says, while I have liberty, while I have a right to say whatever I say, even though I have opportunity to do things, if there's something which I can do that's a stumbling block to my brother, a stumbling block to someone else, I'm not going to do it. Before you hit send, before you hit post, before you put that up, what impact does this have concerning you? And what impact does this have concerning someone else? How are you going to help? How are you going to encourage? How are you going to be there to be for other people? Looking beyond impact, let's look at the idea of your image. What is the image that you have here? What does your image say about you? When people look at the things in which you have, the things that you put out, what is it that they're saying? What is it that you are saying about yourself? So often people self-elevate. Jeremiah 9:23 and 24, let not the wise man glory in his wisdom, let not the mighty man glory in his might, let not the rich man glory in his riches, but let him who glories glory in this, that he understands, God says, and that he knows me. What's Jeremiah saying to the brethren there? Oftentimes, the people in Jerusalem, especially pre-exilic, that is, before they went to the exile, and that's the time in which Jeremiah is preaching, they would focus on their wealth. They would focus on their blessings. They would focus on how good they did this or that or whatever else, even though all that was crumbling away and they were just years before the Babylonians would show up and destroy the entire city. And Jeremiah says, in this crumbling world, instead of lifting yourself up, you need to glory in the fact that you know God. You need to glory in the fact that you put God first in everything that you do. You ever see some people who brag so much on Facebook? You're like, I'm glad they don't brag like that in real life, you know? My child has won so many trophies, we've got to build another room to fit all the trophies in. You ever see some people who are that way? Or, man, I've done this so much and I'm so proud of this accomplishment and that accomplishment. And I'm not saying that's always bad, especially when you're lifting other people up. But be careful about the image that you're putting before other folks. Or how about the folks who do this in a spiritual nature? Have you ever met those folks? You know, I've done this spiritually. I've done that spiritually. Oh, I'm such a great Christian. And you're reminded of the parable of the man who's in the temple praying so loudly that no one can hear the sinner in the corner who is truly giving a prayer to God. Be sure in the way in which you speak on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, or whatever it may be, that you're not elevating yourself with pride and showing that you're better than everybody else. Be sure that the image that you're showing is one that puts God first and shows that sometimes you even struggle yourself, that sometimes you even are working on yourself to grow closer to God. The obvious passage here, right? Matthew 5:13 through 16. Salt of the earth, but if salt loses its saltiness, if it's no different than the rest of the world, Jesus says, throw it out. It's good for nothing but be trampled underfoot by men. You're the light of the world. A city set up on a hill cannot be hidden. Let's skip down Matthew chapter 5:16. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and they may glorify your Father who is in heaven. Number 3, investment. The investment that you have, it always comes right at the beginning of my sermon. It pops up here on my iPad. And it's like God or Jeff Bezos, or I don't know even who owns all this stuff anymore, is just saying, look at this. I'll be preaching, and the little thing will pop up, and it'll say, you are on your computer for an average of 6 hours a day. And I look at that and think, oh my goodness, how in the world did I spend that much time? Now, one of the things that messes us up about my computer is my computer, my iPad, and my phone are all linked together. And so it counts all 3, I'm hoping. We only have so much time during the day. A rich person has 24 hours in a day. You know how much a poor person has? 24 hours in a day. A person who has everything in the world they could ever want has 1,440 minutes every single day. A person who is in need and a person who is struggling has 1,440 minutes every single day. What are you doing with your life? This day is one day you will never get back. And so I thank you for the investment you're giving to God by being here. But as you leave here and as you go home, as you sit up at night on your phone, or as you get up in the morning and check a very first thing, recognize the investment that you're making. Recognize where that time goes. When you start reaching the end of the month, when you start reaching the end of the paycheck, and suddenly your bank account doesn't look so good, what you do is you go back through I don't know if anybody balances their checkbooks anymore, but you go back through your electronic thing where you can read what happened with your bank account, start looking where the money went. Sometimes it goes to big stuff, but you know where usually it goes? A little bit here, a little bit there. We went to this fast food restaurant. We went and picked this up here and there. And those little things, which didn't seem like a major investment, those little things add up. Sometimes when we look through our lives and we don't have a spare moment, if you look back, notice where you've made your investment of time and know where it was shown. Jesus, talking about time, says, where your treasure is, there your heart is also. That's Matthew chapter 6 and verse 21. Sometimes I'll speak to people who a husband and a wife have separated, and with their children, they have to share custody. And, one will have weekends and one will have weeks, or it'll switch back and forth, maybe a week or two in the summer here or there, or whatever else. And when that happens, many times parents will really focus on quality time. I've only got the child for, a weekend, so we're going to do awesome stuff the whole weekend. That's a way of showing love. But you know how you show love to your kids? Not just the special moments, but every moment. You show what you love by the time that you spend on it. You show what you love by the time that you spend around it. There's a preacher who I really respect. I would say I model myself after him, but we preach in totally different ways. Mike Vestal is his name. I love him. He was one of my preachers that I had growing up. He has the New Testament memorized. He can quote you any book. He's one of those kind of preachers. What interests me about him is, a lot of times he says things a little more pointedly than he should, or at least than I would. But sometimes he's back in the auditorium, as everybody's leaving. He calls it shaking out the brethren. And somebody will say, man, I wish I could quote the New Testament like you, Mike. And he says, no, you don't. That makes people sit back, doesn't it? And he said, if you wish you could quote it like me, then you would study every day like I do. If you really wish you could do that, then you would do that. Now, should he speak that directly? I don't know. But that's kind of the case right there, isn't it? Your life that you live is a product of the decisions that you've made. The life that you have today is a product in many ways. Now, there are different circumstances that happen, but for the most part, your life is a grouping of the decisions that you've made. And so when you think about your social media account, recognize the investment that you're giving to it and ask yourselves, what is it that I'm getting back from them? Now, when you think about this investment, going deeper than this, who is it that you trust? Who is it that you are listening to? Jeremiah 17, verses 5 through 6, cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh his strength, whose heart departs from the Lord. He shall be like a shrub in the desert and shall not see when good comes, but he shall inhabit the parched places in the wilderness, and he'll live in a salt land which shall not be inhabited. One of the hobbies that Rhonda and I have is we go to different conventions of homesteaders, and it's kind of fun to go and listen to those people. They tell you how to, live off the land, and they tell you how, you can be self-sustaining and everything. And we listen to them all day, and then I go to McDonald's later. But anyway, Many years ago, I remember going to a class this guy had about fencing and about how you do different fences for cows and different, for whatever animal you have. And he was showing how to make the corner post and, all those things, which pretty much every country boy knows, but every city boy is just like, that sort of thing. And so I listened to him for about 45 minutes. And then after his presentation, I was talking to him. The dude lives in an apartment. But he has a YouTube channel, and he has a friend, and he goes to his friend's house that owns, almost a ranch, a lot of land, and he goes over there and he makes videos about the fences on that man's land. And he has tens of thousands of followers. It's all on social media, a facade, to the point to where so many people treat this guy like he's an expert, and then he goes right back to his apartment with his little puppy dog. And that got me to thinking whether I was like that and how many other people that I watch on YouTube and watch on Facebook, how many other people are that way? You look at people online and their families are perfect. You're not in their home. You look at people online and, man, all these things are just so right in their life. You're not in their mind. Be careful the investment you make in other people, and make sure that the things that they're saying are actually true, that they're actually experienced, that there's really something there of substance that you know. It's such an important thing. All right, this next one, important one to me, impulsiveness. Oh, somebody quotes something or says something on Facebook, and I've got to fix them, right? Sometimes you're just so mad, so you have to tell the whole world that they just put pickles on your sandwich. And sometimes it's worse things that we say because we're so mad, because we're so caught up. And sometimes we get so frustrated, we get so irritated, it's rough for us in the things that we say. Proverbs 20 and verse 3, it's honorable for a man to stop striving, since any fool can start a quarrel. How many people, honestly, how many people, when you win a fight online, have their minds changed? When you get online and you tell everybody who the best basketball team is, does everybody else go, yeah, you're right. You're right about that. When you get online and tell everybody, oh my goodness, if you vote for this candidate, I can't believe you. Are they going to go, yeah, you got a point there. If that person said it, it must be true. You don't convince people. Now, sometimes you find a community of like-minded people, and you enter into an echo chamber where you think everybody in the world agrees with you. But be careful about being impulsive. Be careful about joining into an online fight. Be careful about posts that come across in a negative way. Be careful about those things that you might say. Titus chapter 3, verses 1 and 2. Titus talks about how to set things in order in the church, how to set things in order in your family, and how to set things in order, chapter 3, in the world. In chapter 3, 1 and 2, he says, remind them to be subject to the rulers and authorities, to obey, to be ready for every good work. Now notice this, to speak evil of no one, to be peaceable to all people, to be gentle, and to show humility to all men. All right, the last point I want us to look at is imitate. Who is it that you truly want to be like? A generation, 2 generations ago, people who were growing up wanted to be firefighters. People who were growing up wanted to be in the army. People who were growing up wanted to be policemen. And then the next generation came along. And the next generation, everybody wanted to be a doctor. Everybody wanted to be a lawyer. Everybody wanted to be a CEO. In other words, money became very important to a certain situation in many ways. Now, not every doctor and every lawyer and every CEO is in it for the money, but many people chose that occupation before they entered into it for that reason. Talk to a lot of young people today. You know what they want to be? influencers. Now, you and I might think, what in the world kind of job is an influencer? And especially once some of us old people start seeing pictures of influencers, we're like, that's not what I want to be. Younger people are like, yeah, and they start looking at the different ones who are there. And I'm not going to mention their names. First of all, because I'm too old. Second of all, because I don't know. No, not really. But a lot of them I've never heard of. But younger people see these influencers and they're like, that's who I want to be. Well, question yourself. Who is it that you're following? And what influence do they have in your life? 1 Corinthians 15:33, of course. Beware of following people with corrupt morals because they will corrupt you as well. But as you follow them, don't follow them blindly. Follow them in the idea of seeing perhaps what their motives may be. I may have mentioned before to you a while back about a friend of mine that I graduated in high school with. And he got into politics, went to Northwestern up in Chicago, and he works for the Democratic Party. But he's not a politician. His job is during campaign season, he will help lead campaigns, and he's led several campaigns of very prominent people. But during the off season, you know what he does? Off season. It sounds like it's, a game. And for politics, some people, it is that way. He's hired by the Democratic Party, makes six figures to run Twitter banks. And what he does is he has a lot of college kids who intern, and they will constantly be putting out certain things on Twitter and on other social media accounts to try to make them trend. And so a lot of these things that you look at, people oftentimes will call them bots. A lot of these people who are online are paid by political parties, paid for by certain people to try to move people to think, hey, everybody believes this way. Look at all the likes this person has. Look at all the clout this person has. Look at all the repeats or the copies that this person has. They must be important. Well, it's people who are trying to push public opinion. Watch the influence of the people that you're imitating. Make sure they're real people. Look for their reasons for why they're doing those things that they do. As we think about this idea of imitating, watch the background of some of the people that you follow. I see it from my perspective. Members of the church and preachers and such. There's a guy living out in California who a ton of people follow. Oh my goodness. His family has so many situations. His church has so many situations. But he has 20,000 followers on Facebook. And so many people see him as an expert because of the way that he puts himself out on social media. And just like that guy who built fences, living in his apartment, sometimes we may take spiritual guidance by people who have quite a few issues. So how do we do it when we think about Christians and social media? You're going to hear some preachers, especially older ones, say, don't do it. Hop off. That's the best, safest thing you should do. And maybe it is. But I think we should be on there as Christians. I think as we think about the impact that we have, as we think about the influence that we have, as we watch the things that we say, and as we build other people up, I think we can make this world be a better place. I think we can lead people to Jesus, not just by preaching online, but by being good people online. I think in these relationships, as we build people up and as we help them, we will bring people closer to God and make this world be a better place. But just like in every situation in life, some people will take that which is good and they will pervert it. Some people will take that which is not bad, but they use it in an evil way. And we've got to be sure as Christians that we don't get caught up in that sort of stuff, that we don't get carried away in that sort of stuff, and that we realize that the majority of things that we see very likely may not be real. Be very careful in the things which you engage in. and the ways in which you interact with the world.